Hi everyone, this is Jamie. So I wanted to talk today about representation, and I feel like certain representation as the time goes, people feel less open to share about it and less open to talk about it. And one of the examples which contradicts that, and I find it very interesting, is um, Hunter Schaffer's character in Euphoria, Jules. So normally we're kind of taught a very straight, direct trans timeline, and we're supposed to be like in this box. And then, kind of as we reach the end of that box, as soon as we get through the surgeries and etc., we just tend to outgrow our community. And this is a thing that has been going on since ever. Uh, and it's really interesting because back in the day, like when I was discovering what trans people are, it was it was different. It was mostly older folk talking, raising awareness, and it was mostly the folk which went already through certain stages of transition. They had no family behind them or low support, and they just wanted to show that it truly is hard to do this. And even though I don't remain in good contact with certain people, just because life went apart, they crossed my path, I crossed theirs, and in general used to be a very angry teenager. But I still feel very thankful for those talks that they give me, and I truly hope they are well, and that we all wisened up. But regardless, so it was mostly like older people in the community trying to give more advice. Well, now I feel like, at least in the trans man community, we just go online, seek people who have similar experiences, and it's very hard to find people these days who have gone further than we have. As in, right now, I'm obviously post top. I'm posting another few, and I'm waiting for follow. So I really wanted to emphasize that I myself sometimes feel like I want to leave the community. And by the community, it's usually the community online. And it's not necessarily that, because at the same time, I was like in LGBT groups, and I was actually thinking the other day, I had an appointment with my own endo, and I ran across a very, very old friend, acquaintance, who I haven't talked to because, well, I, I was just too angry at the time for people being friends with people who I thought were wrong, but at the same time, it was really refreshing to see someone who I helped back in the day just smile and ask if I'm good. And in general, I've been having kind of a sort of a weird day, and in general, everything's been weird. Um, I'm not really one to brag about stuff, so I kind of just had a rough day where like my dad was just telling me that I didn't achieve anything, and I was like, well, just because I don't want to brag doesn't mean that I didn't achieve anything. Well, and it's kind of, I feel like it's a very personal thing for me. Like, I don't like telling, like, yeah, I helped this person out. I helped this person out. Like, sure, I keep tabs on them in my head, but it's it's something I even rarely discuss with my partner, because I feel like it's the person who can go and who survives whatever they were going through in their life is the one who should talk about it, rather than me saying that, yeah, I helped, like, this and that, you know? I don't know. I'm just not a very posting person. So anyway, so I wanted to say that obviously, like, those people who I helped, for instance, there are a few, and they're no longer like that active in the community. Like, we achieve this location, like mental location, where we realize that we're happy where we are in the transition, even though we can be doing further steps. But we're at this point where no one really sees us as someone who we're not. And I'm not saying, obviously, there's assholes everywhere, and I really, really understand that, because obviously I recently got even more caught up from people who I thought, would cut me off anyway. And I did feel like I'm still not sure if I did the right thing by being the bigger person, just to be slapped across the face. So yeah. So I do feel like we get too much pressure as our transition goes forwards. And not just, but also we get like these expectations of, like, we should be in the community, we should be okay with telling people. And today I had an interesting discussion with my mother where I was like, I am very tired that everyone thinks that it's my fault for being trans, and that it's my responsibility to come out, and no one can suggest me anything or any advice, and everyone just thinks that I have it easy by just coming out to everyone. And I'm just a very close person in general, so it did feel kind of liberating to say that. And I just feel like people don't give enough credit. So what I wanted to say was that obviously we grow in our transition, and when we reach a certain point where we ourselves cannot understand sometimes the problems that others go through. Like, for instance, I'm fine with helping people on a psychological level, and that's what I do. But when it comes to community and like community discussions, community representation, I'm not exactly there. Like, even like with gay pride, I think about it and I'm like, well, I marched in Scotland when that was the last march before they got marriage equality, and that to me that was a big march for me. And as years went on, I just saw that people march for different reasons. And I'm not saying we should eliminate gay pride, but more like, I believe that everyone has their own stance on gay pride. And, like, for instance, I do think that kink should be at pride. And I don't know, I don't think I'd march in cross-dressing wear like in my city, even though, like, obviously you can see me on Grindr, like what I do. Know what my kinks are, but I still think that it's not maybe something I'd showcase. And also, I had the thought of maybe even doing another polyamory topic, because it's still a very taboo thing to discuss polyamory. And specifically in the case of Portugal, there's a lot of cheating and a lot of people who prefer to cheat rather than open the relationship. So it's a very interesting topic as well. And then I kept thinking that the more we grow, the more we are open to putting ourselves out of the boxes. And I know a lot of people like say, oh, Jamie, you're gender conforming, but obviously when I was growing up, my experience was that gay men wore makeup, gay men were feminine, gender non-conforming, and they were still men. They were gay men, sure, but they were still men. So obviously, I feel very weird when people try to label me as something not the usual trans guy, when in reality, if you'd look at the cis guy who is doing the same thing as I do, well, maybe you'd call them gender non-conforming, since that's a word that people like to flick across without even thinking about it. But in general, I'm just a dude. I'm just a trans guy. I'm a guy. I'm a transsexual man, if you must. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And to sum it up, I just want to talk about Euphoria with Jules' character, where there was this special episode where she talks about stopping the blockers. And I found that interesting because that isn't a detransition topic. But in general, sometimes we have to ask ourselves, like, where in regards to the transition do we want to stop? And it's very taboo. It's very, very taboo. Obviously, we have the transitioners left and right, and I fucking dislike all the talks from them, because usually it's mostly very poisonous and contagious in a very, very sort of J.K. Rowling preachy way. But I found it very refreshing, specifically in her talk, where she talks that, well, maybe you don't have to be all that feminine, because obviously it's a trans woman character. And there's even a mention that she's wearing a binder. And that is very interesting. Like, and a lot of people have talked about it. I personally, I looked all over my identity. I did not feel non-binary in any way or transmasc. But it's really interesting, like, when we get to a place where we're comfortable with our bodies, more or less, and then we start exploring everything else. Our expression, our sexual identity. And that's already when we're out of the community. So then we start thinking, like, do we want to do this? Do we want to do that? And that is very taboo. And because the community is mostly young people who feel like they are the voice, the face of the community. Like, I still remember, like, even a few years back, like, with Susan's, where it was dominantly trans women talking about their experiences, it was still older trans women. And now I see the shift. I can't speak, obviously, for the trans woman community, but for the trans guy community, there still is, like, spaces which are more geared towards older trans guys, younger trans guys. And the younger trans guys obviously dominate the conversation because there's so many of them, because they're the ones who still have to understand to themselves as well that it's okay to be trans, it's okay to be themselves, and also that they're still going to the journey where they will start feeling less dysphoric as the transition goes forwards. So yeah, so I really found that interesting in Euphoria, which was really talked about because it's very taboo, obviously. So I feel like, in the summary, we need to talk what happens after transition, you know? And yeah, I do feel like I was a bit of an interesting case, because, like, with my cross-dressing, I just wanted to do things that I wanted to do after I transition. So I kind of really put myself, like, I want to do this when I have, like, the body yachty, and I just want to, like, be cross-dressing and just sucking some dick in the park, which I did do a lot of, actually. before I even got top surgery, and I had my fun with that. And obviously, right now I'm in a more space where I can do it, where I feel more confident doing it, and I still get like, wow, I was so brave before. And because obviously there's a lot of these do's and don'ts, there's obviously the period of cross-dressing shame. There's also people who think that if you cross-dress, you're trans in some way, or you're less of a man in some way. And in reality, it's just, I just like dressing up. That's it. I like using makeup, I like dressing up, and I wish there was more sort of interesting manly ways to do it other than drag or cross-dressing. It's just, these are the tools I have to dress up, you know? And to suck dudes in the park. Pretty much it. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope all these points made sense in the end. And thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate the love I got on the previous video. Even if you hated it, I still appreciate it. And please like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, share, since that maybe worked last time. I don't know what worked last time, but you know. Thank you very much.